Hello, hello. Aurelia Davis here, coming to you. Part two of school trends that are happening this fall. This is parent power, parent power. And when I think about parent power, of course, I become very compassionate because I'm a parent myself. I'm a parent myself. Um, what's been happening? What's been happening in the last couple of years, or even let's go back a little further. Let's go back to a little further. I remember when I was teaching and how important it was for me to have my parents on board with the children that with their children. In other words, basically I created what I've talked about before is the triad: the parent, the teacher, and the child. The parent, the teacher, and the child. Those three came together. And if I had 32 children in my classroom, it was 32 parents, teachers, and children. Okay. And I would set up, I found it necessary. I didn't do it at the beginning of my school year when I started teaching, but eventually what I did do is I started setting up that triad where the parent and the child and we would all be on the same page. And the reason I started that is because sometimes I found out that with my smart third graders that whatever I was telling them, they were telling their parents something totally different. And if they were having issues or if they were having struggles in the classroom, then I found myself reaching out to the parent and the parent not knowing about any of this happening. So it became very, very important for me to develop a parent teacher child relationship in order for the children to grow in that particular classroom. So it can have a positive and a negative effect. It can have a positive and a negative effect. And I'm going to speak on being a parent first. Being a parent first, of course, you want your child to have the best of everything. You want them to learn. You don't want them to have any issues with education or learning, and so on and so forth. And the biggest struggle that you have as a parent is that if a teacher comes to you and tell you that your child is struggling in a particular area, in reading or in math or something, or we see some deficits. And of course, teachers are very well trained in that area to be able to see that. It's nothing that comes off automatically. No, it's something where usually that teacher has observed that child for over a period of weeks, months, and whatever. Not too many months because they want to be able to rectify the situation before it gets too far. But if you start, a teacher will start looking at a child and see if that child is struggling in any particular area. And if that child is struggling in any particular area, it is the right or is the responsibility of that teacher to get in touch with that parent so that if it's something temporary, we can just sort of nip it in the bud ASAP and just keep on moving. But when it gets to, so you as a parent, that is something you're first and foremost concerned. It was interesting that while I was growing up, my mother had five daughters and she had five different learners in her household. She had five different learners in her household. So what she tried not to do, and sometimes it happened, but what she tried not to do is compare us together, to compare us as, as far as learners are concerned. My older sister was not a reader. My middle sister read, I mean, she read everything. She read everything. I was a reader. Then I had another sister that was more hands-on with typewriters and things like that. She basically was an organizer. So she had five different personalities, five different learners in her household. And as we got older, she started to see our strengths and our weaknesses. And what would happen is that she started feeding into the strengths that we had. And if there were weaknesses, she would try to help us with those also. But as parents, you have to just basically listen to that educator who has been working with your child for like the last 3 or 4 days, the last 3 or 4 weeks, and see exactly what they see, which is something you most likely do not see. You do most likely do not see. Now, of course, the educator is maybe looking at the child and maybe looking at exactly comparing as far as not comparing with another child, but comparing to the grade level that the child is in. And in it and in it and if any case that teacher is placing a, say for instance, a reader, a third grade reader, you have a third grade classroom, you're placing a third grade reader in front of a third grader and he cannot read a passage, then that's an issue, because they're not going to be going backwards, they're going to be going forward into fourth grade. So they should be reading at a third grade level and then being ready to move into a fourth grade level. But a lot of times that does not happen. And usually, if a parent is very observant, they will have noticed the trend that their child is taking up to a particular grade. In other words, you got, if the child attended preschool, how did they develop? How well did they do in preschool? How well did they do in kindergarten, first grade, second grade? By third grade, you should know exactly what type of learner you have. And that's why parent-teacher conferences are so very, very important. No parent should be left in the dark about what their child can and cannot do. That is very disheartening. That is very discouraging. So I talked as the parent. You don't want to hear it, but sometimes you have to hear it so that you can basically put your best foot forward to fix the situation. Now, as an educator, on the educator side, you want to let parents know as so far in advance that their child may be struggling in a particular area. You need to be open also as an educator as to what the parent is telling you. You need to be open also as to what the parent is telling you. If it gets into the point where the parent is sharing some information with you, of course, that is confidential. You do not share it with anybody else. I have had parents that have come to me and the child seemed to be struggling all of a sudden. And then I would, address the parent. I say, well, Johnny didn't do too well on his math test last week, and where he's been doing real good before. What's going on? So I opened the question up to find out exactly what they have to tell me. And I let them know immediately. I said, this conversation is between you and I about Johnny. And that's it. We're going to come together as a team to see what we can fix. And then, of course, sometimes I was given information that there was a death in the family. Maybe a grandparent had passed away. And so then I would allow certain things to happen within my classroom and give that child more time to adjust or grieve, in order for them to come back. And I would have more compassion for that child at that particular time, for the length of time was needed in order for that child to get back to where they needed to be. So at the same time, parent power is something that teachers have to take very seriously, because no one knows that child better than that parent. You're seeing that child in a group of setting of other children, but that parent basically has had that child all of their lives up to that particular point. So they can share some things with you that will give you information about the child that you're teaching. What is also important about parent power is that you have to build up a trust factor with your parents. The parents have to trust you that you are doing the best for their child. I have gotten into, and if some people may say it's not professional, but I have gotten into some very personal, a refreshing, laughing joke time with my parents. I got to the point where we developed such, professional relationships, but we did have personal relationships too. Not outside of the classroom. I didn't necessarily go out and do any, excuse me, I didn't go out and do any necessarily partying with them or anything like that. But I would just get with them when they would come for parent-teacher conferences, and we would joke and laugh and whatever, and that set them up. That let them know I was human also, and that they can be very comfortable with me, and that basically we were here together trying to get through this school year, and I need your help as much as possible, and then I can help you. So that's the type of thing that parent power represents as far as I'm concerned. Now, parent power has gotten a little out of hand to the point where you are basically, as a parent, you decide that what you want your child to learn. This is what I think about that. When you are enrolling your child into a school, you have the very right to check into what exactly the policy is of that particular school. And if that policy is driven by a state mandate, or is driven by a government mandate, basically you cannot go in there and change anything. You're not, because it has been governed, and you're just one person, and things have basically been voted on with a group of people. And so, that might not be the school that you want your child to attend. So you check out another school, and you check out another school. It's just like buying a car. When you're buying a car, you want the best fit for what you need it for. So you want the best fit for your child. I have known parents that have basically taking their children out of public schools that may have been overcrowded. They're not as overcrowded as they used to be, but basically putting their child in a smaller setting, smaller school setting. And that was good for that particular child, because that child was able to get a lot more one-on-one. And then parents that do have children that are in special ed, they are now looking for those schools basically that can meet the needs of their child in the special needs that they may have, the special needs that they have to be addressed. And that is state mandated also. So some things are basically state mandated. So parent power is very essential. Teacher power is just as essential. And basically those powers work together to make a brilliant educator. I'll say it: parent power, teacher power, brilliant student. You can't miss. You can't miss. But these are some trends that have been popping up as far as we get into the 2024 school year, and I don't think they're going away anytime soon. Let's see what happens next. Have a great one. Take care. Bye bye.